I woke up to the ping of an email, the kind that doesn't need to be opened because the preview alone is enough to break something inside you. Subject: Wedding livestream link. From Mom. Time 6:12. I didn't even click it. I just stared at my cracked phone screen, watching the seconds tick past the subject line like they could somehow erase it. I already knew what I'd find. The link. The smiling photo of Clare in my dress. The one Nana had wrapped in tissue paper and stored in the cedar chest at the end of her bed. The one she let me try on when I turned 17 and whispered, "Someday, this will be yours." But it wasn't mine anymore, and I wasn't even invited. I didn't cry right away, not until I opened my bedroom window and saw the late October, wind brushing dead leaves across the sidewalk, like the world was trying to tidy up what was already gone. I made myself tea, held the mug close, pretended I didn't care. But I watched the clock. 2 p.m., the time they said, "I do." The time I was supposed to stand beside her. Not as a bridesmaid, not as a guest, but as her sister. They told me the venue changed. They told me it would be a small, private affair. They told me they didn't want to make it awkward. They didn't want to reignite old tension. Claire wanted peace. Mom agreed, and just like that, I became a loose end. A week ago, I found the dress bag in the hall closet, unzipped. Claire had it tailored, obviously. She's shorter than me, and she took out the vintage lace along the back. The sleeves were gone. "It looked younger," she said. "You weren't going to wear it anyway." She shrugged when I saw her trying it. And Nana's dead. It's not like she'll know. I had opened my mouth to speak, but no words came out. They told me not to take it personally, that I was too intense about sentimental things, that I should just be happy for her. So, this morning I didn't go. I didn't reply to the email. I didn't check the link. I just sat by the window in my threadbare robe, hair still wet from the shower, staring at the dusty street below. Claire was probably walking down the aisle by then. Camera crew, string, quartet, the works. I imagined them all smiling, laughing, toasting, my name not mentioned even once, maybe only whispered, as a relief. At 2:13 p.m., I opened my laptop and wrote this instead of watching the live stream. I hope the dress fits her dreams better than it fit my silence. Then I closed it. And for the first time in years, I felt like I had said something that couldn't be ignored. When we were kids, there was a rule in our house. Claire cries, and I disappear. It wasn't written down, of course, but I learned it early. If she got upset, I got blamed. If she wanted something, I stepped aside. Or more often, was pushed aside so smoothly it felt like my own idea. I was 8 when she got my birthday gift. It was a music box, one of those delicate porcelain ones with a spinning ballerina inside. Nana had picked it out for me, hand-painted the tiny violets on the lid to match the flowers on my bedsheet. Claire dropped it the moment she touched it. She cried, loud and shrill, face scrunched, like she was the one who had been hurt. And when the music box shattered, Mom sighed and said, "You know better than to leave things where your sister can break them." So I said sorry, even though it wasn't my fault, even though it had been wrapped and hidden under my pillow. That was the first time I learned that things didn't belong to me, just because they were given to me. Years later, the dress became the same kind of wound. When Nana showed it to me, I was 17, and Clare was 13. I remember how careful Nana was as she unwrapped it, how her fingers shook a little as she spread the lace across the bedspread and held it up to my shoulders. "See how it glows when the light hits. It," she said. "Just like your mother's did when I made it for her," I whispered. "It's beautiful." Clare sat on the floor by the dresser, flipping through a wedding magazine. She didn't look up until I laughed, the kind of laugh that feels like a held breath finally escaping. Nana laughed too. She said I looked like a storybook bride. Clare stood up, came close. She didn't say anything, just watched. A month later, she asked Mom if she could try on the dress. They said no, back then. "One day, Clare," Mom had said, "let your sister have something first for once." But somehow, one day came for Clare first anyway. When Nana died last year, I was the one who stayed behind to help clear out the house. Mom and Dad were too busy with Clare's engagement party. They sent me a checklist instead. Post-it notes stuck on old bookshelves and photo frames. One note said, "Keep the cedar chest. That's for Clare's future kids." That's when I knew. The dress was no longer mine. It was a bridal prop for a future that didn't include me. In the months after that, things got quieter. Clare's name came up more in family group chats. My messages were read but not answered. Mom said I was too sensitive. Dad said I shouldn't hold grudges. Clare said, "You're not even dating anyone. Why should the dress just sit there?" So I packed up my apartment in silence, moved into a smaller place with fewer reminders, donated everything that had been given to me with conditions. Kept one thing. Nana's old brooch, the one they forgot, was tucked inside the lining of the dress bag. They never noticed it was missing. They never asked. Today, I opened the drawer where I keep it, the brooch, wrapped in a handkerchief that still smells like cedar and dust. I held it tight in my palm as the afternoon sun faded across the floorboards. Clare was probably opening gifts right now, laughing, blushing, drunk on champagne and praise, wearing my name sewn into her hem. But I had the brooch, and I had silence, and neither of those things were for sharing. A week passed before I got the first message from Mom. "Did you see the live stream?" Clare looked radiant, didn't she? No. Question about why I hadn't replied. No acknowledgement of the silence between us. Just a string of emojis and a photo attachment. Clare under the rose arch, hands folded under her chin, like she was pretending to pray. She looked exactly how I thought she would. Perfect. Framed. And wearing the lie like it had always belonged to her. I didn't open the image. I just deleted it. Then I opened my closet and started with the photos. The shoebox under my bed held 15 years of proof that I had once mattered to this family. Or maybe it just held the version of me they tolerated, the one who smiled at every graduation even when it wasn't mine, who clapped from the audience when they forgot I was supposed to be on stage too. Photo after photo. Clare blowing out. Candles while I held the lighter Clare in my science fair ribbon because she forgot hers, Clare posing in front of Nana's house. While I stood off to the side, cropped out in every frame, I didn't burn them. That would have made me too visible. Instead, I cut myself out. Softly. Quietly. One by one. Then I dropped the curled paper scraps into a kitchen bowl and poured water over them. They didn't float. They just sank like something old and heavy. I didn't respond to Clare either. Her message came a day later. "Just checking in, we missed you. The dress fit so perfectly." Everyone said it was timeless. She included 3 photos, one of her and Mom holding hands, one of the dresses back, altered and stripped, of everything Nana stitched with love, one of her holding a bouquet so large it nearly covered her face. No photo of me, no mention of me, not even an afterthought. That night, I sat in my new apartment, the one they hadn't visited, not even once, and stared at the ceiling. Thought about how Claire would be settling into her honeymoon suite. Maybe in the south of France, maybe in a cabin up north. Wherever it was, I knew she had a new monogrammed robe, and I knew I'd paid for part of it. She borrowed my credit card last month, just for the deposit, and no one offered to pay me back. I wasn't even angry about the money. I was angry about how easy it was for them to forget the cost. Everything about me had always been treated like an extra, a resource, a favor they were doing me by taking things from me. So I started deleting the backups too. Every cloud album, every tagged memory, every comment that said, "You're such a good sister." Every like that came from people who never remembered my birthday. By midnight, I was a ghost on every platform, and the silence felt good, like standing in a room where no one could talk over you, because no one even knew you were still there. Tomorrow, they'll probably notice. They'll think it's petty, dramatic, overreacting, but they'll never say it out loud. That would require calling me. And calling me means admitting they knew I existed. The last thing tying me to them was a bank account. It was opened when I got my first job out of college. A joint account, just in case, Mom had said. Safety net, Dad echoed. It was meant for emergencies, but over the years, it had quietly become something else. Claire had the login too. They used it to float things, like groceries, wedding deposits, car insurance, even a last-minute spa weekend Claire forgot to budget for. I let it happen. For years. I told myself it was easier to avoid the fight. That being the helper, the dependable one, was how I kept some shred of closeness. But now I didn't want closeness. I wanted distance, not rage, not revenge, just absence. I logged in around 6 a.m. on a Sunday, the quiet hour, when no one else was awake. The balance was low, just under $200. They had spent most of it on the wedding. I transferred the remaining amount to my personal account, then closed the joint one with 2 clicks. The bank asked me to confirm my decision. "Are you sure you want to permanently close this account?" I hovered, not because I wasn't sure, but because I realized that they wouldn't notice until they needed me again, and I wouldn't be. There, I clicked. Yes. Then I sat in the dark and let the silence settle around me like fog. By noon, I got the first ping. Claire. "Hey, did you move the money? We were going to use it for the honeymoon massages Lowell let me know." No, please. No question mark at the end. Just assumption. I didn't respond. An hour later, Mom followed up. "You closed the joint account? Why?" "You didn't say anything. That's not fair to your sister." That part stung, but not in the way they thought. It stung because even now, she was the one worth defending. I typed a reply, erased it, typed another, deleted that too. Eventually, I sent one word. Yes. That was it. No apology, no explanation, no performance of guilt. I expected a call. Instead, I got another email, this time from Dad. Not long, just a few lines. "We're confused and disappointed. This isn't like you. I hope you'll come around eventually. We love you, even if you're being a bit dramatic right now." I stared at it for a long time. They still thought I was being dramatic. Not devastated, not discarded, not done. Just difficult. I closed the email tab and opened a new one. My resignation letter. Not from a job, but from a role I'd played since childhood. The helper, the fixer, the invisible older daughter who held the weight of everyone else's comfort. I didn't send it, of course. There was no address for that kind of letter. So, instead I printed it and tucked it inside Nana's handkerchief with the brooch. Not for them. For me, proof that I had finally chosen myself. I hadn't been back to Nana's house since the day I packed the cedar chest. They'd already gone through everything else before I arrived. Every cupboard labeled, every photo peeled from its frame like wallpaper. They left the hard parts to me. The attic, the linens, the things that held a smell too close to memory. The house was supposed to go on the market this spring. Claire said it didn't fit the family vibe anymore. She wanted a newer place, for holiday dinners. More modern, she said, with open shelves and marble countertops. But Nana's house wasn't supposed to be open. It was supposed to be quiet, closed, secretive in the best ways, like the way the floor creaked near the front door if you came in after 10. Or the way she kept cookies in a tin that always looked empty until you lifted the false bottom. It wasn't stylish, but it was safe. I drove out there on a Tuesday, 2 weeks after the wedding. No one knew. I didn't tell them. The key still worked. They hadn't changed the locks yet. Inside, the house smelled like old heat and wood polish. Not like anyone anymore, but not like strangers either. The air was still. The kind of stillness that holds grief in the walls. I didn't turn on the lights, just walked slowly, from the front room to the back, running my hand along the wallpaper edge, remembering the days when Nana would hum as she dusted, always with the radio low. The living room was empty now, except for the built-in shelf Dad couldn't remove. Nana's favorite books still sat there, the ones nobody wanted. The ones I had left behind like little gravestones for the life she lived. I sat on the floor, right where the old armchair used to be, and pulled one of the books from the shelf. The Art of Repair. I hadn't noticed it before. Inside was a folded slip of paper, not Nana's handwriting. Mine. A note I must have written when I was 11, tucked away during one of our quiet afternoons together. When I grow up, I'll live here with you. We'll make soup and not let Clare. Be mean, I let out a breath that broke halfway through. Not quite a cry, not quite a laugh, just a release. They didn't want this house. Not really. They wanted the inheritance, the sale, the shiny new place to gather without me. So I made my choice. I drove back into town that night and walked straight into the title office. No fanfare. No tears. Just a simple statement. I'd like to buy out my share of the house. They looked surprised. Said I'd need to submit documents. Said the others might contest it. But I didn't care. I had Nana's brooch, my own savings, and no, more room for waiting. They wanted marble counters. They could have them, but they weren't getting this house. The paperwork took longer than I expected. There were emails, calls, delays that didn't feel like coincidence. Claire misplacing her consent forms. Mom claiming she never got the right documents. Dad emailing me with a fake tone of concern. Are you sure about this, sweetheart? It's a big commitment for someone on your income. That line stayed with me, not because of the insult, but because of the tone. He still thought of me as a daughter who needed permission, not as a woman reclaiming what was already hers. It was a Tuesday when I got the final call from the title office. "It's done. The deed's yours now." I just nodded and whispered, "Thank you," though I wasn't sure who I was thanking. Nana, the woman on the phone. God? I drove to the house with the windows down. No music, just air, just movement, just the soft sound of freedom brushing against me like wind through dry leaves. The house looked tired when I arrived. Empty, but not abandoned. Claire had already removed the rest of her sentimental pieces. A few books, a china dish, some old postcards Nana had written her back when she was the golden child in training. They left behind the piano, the cracked mirror, and the nail in the wall where Nana's photo used to hang. I started slowly, not with renovations, but with restoration. I scrubbed the sink, polished the floor with my sleeves pulled over my hands, slept on the old couch in the den with a blanket wrapped around me like an apology. There was no furniture, no working internet, just silence. And it was the most I'd felt at home in years. 2 days in, Mom showed up. She didn't call first, just knocked, sharp, like she owned the door. I let her in, but only to the front room. Her heels clicked against the hardwood like she was walking through a museum she didn't understand. She looked around, frowned. "I thought you were staying in the city. Isn't this a bit much?" I didn't answer. She walked over to the window and stared out like she was the one doing me a favor. "Your sister's pregnant, you know," she said suddenly, like it was a challenge. I nodded. "Good for her." She turned. "You could have told us how upset you were. All this, it's just so dramatic." There was that word again, dramatic. It always meant inconvenient. It always meant not Claire. I looked her in the eye for the first time in months. "You called it sentimental. I call it mine." She didn't reply. Just gave one last look at the room, maybe to see what I had that was worth claiming. Then left, muttering something about letting me cool off. She still didn't understand. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. That night, I made soup. Nana's recipe, the one with too much thyme and not enough broth. I ate it cross-legged on the kitchen floor, the pot balanced on an old towel. Outside, the wind scraped along the windows, and the house groaned softly, not with age, but with memory. I opened the drawer next to the stove. Nana's handwriting was still taped to the inside panel. "If you're reading this, you made it home." I touched it with one finger and smiled. Claire didn't knock. She texted. "Outside. Can we talk?" I stared at the screen. The message hung there, weightless and undeserved. She hadn't said a word since the wedding. Not when I went silent. Not when I took the house. Not when I removed myself from every shared family thread like a thread unraveling from a sweater no one cared to mend. But here she was, on the porch, probably wearing that same smug gloss she always wore when asking for something wrapped in, a compliment. I opened the door halfway. She stood with one hand over her belly like she was posing for a maternity ad, the other holding an iced coffee. Like this was just another Saturday, like we were still sisters, like the wedding never happened. "Can I come in?" "No." She blinked. "Wow. Okay." A small laugh, like I was being silly again. "I just thought, I don't know, that we could talk." You never wanted to talk before." She shifted her weight, eyes flicking past me like she expected the house to look different, like I had turned it into something Pinterest-worthy. "I didn't come to fight. You never fight. You just take." She sighed. "This is about the dress, isn't it?" My hand tightened on the door. But I didn't let it swing shut. Not yet. "It's about everything," I said quietly. "The dress was just the last thing you took that you pretended was never mine." She rolled her eyes like it stung. Not the words, but the fact that I was still clinging to them. "You're being so cold about all this. I thought you'd moved past it. I mean, you have the house now." That sentence sat between us like something rotting. "I have the house. She has my dress. We're even, right?" "Did you come here to trade?" I asked. "A life for a house?" She paused. "I came because Mom said you'd probably listen to me more than her." She was wrong. She exhaled, a dramatic little puff of breath like she was the one who'd been wronged. Then came the real reason. "I just need somewhere to stay, for a bit. The condo's getting fumigated, and the Airbnb fell through. I figured, it's Nana's house. We both grew up here." She said it like I still owed her something, like memory gave her a key she'd long since returned. "You had a wedding," I said. "You had my dress, my parents, my place at the table. This house. It's the only thing that didn't choose you." Her voice dropped to that syrupy tone she used on people who used to fall for it. "I'm pregnant, you know." I nodded. So was Nana. And she still built this house by herself. Claire blinked. She didn't have a comeback, because she'd never needed one before. She took a step back. "Fine. Stay bitter. I was just trying to be the bigger person, then walk away taller." I closed the door, softly, without drama. The sound wasn't loud. It was final. I didn't watch through the window as she left. Didn't wait for another message. I just lit a candle, sat in the kitchen, and felt the weight of the boundary I had drawn settle around me like something sacred. Winter came quietly. No frost on the windows yet, just that dull hush in the air, like the world was waiting to exhale. The house didn't creak as much now. The walls had settled. Or maybe I had. Every morning I swept the porch, not because it needed it, but because Nana used to say, "The day feels better when the path is clear." I believed her. About that. About most things. One morning, a letter arrived. Thick envelope, no return address. Handwritten name in soft blue ink. Margot inside was a card. Faded, edges worn like it had been held too often. And a note in Nana's handwriting, unmistakable, steady even in age. "If this reaches you, then you finally chose yourself. Good. I wanted you to know. The dress was never about the wedding. It was about having something no one else could take from you. But they took it anyway. So now take what they can't touch. Take the life you were owed and build it without apology. Love you, always. Nana." I folded the note back into the envelope and placed it inside the cedar chest. The one Claire forgot about, the one I never let them move. I didn't cry, I didn't smile. I just sat there, breathing in the wood and wool and memory of a woman who had seen me long before anyone else did. That night, I opened my closet. The wedding dress wasn't there. Of course not. Claire had cut it apart, remade it in her image. But my brooch was still pinned to my coat. and my name was still mine. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, the lights dim, the world quiet, and I imagined what it must have looked like. Clare twirling in the dress, surrounded by applause, never once thinking about the girl she stole it from. And I imagined something better. Me. In a second-hand bookstore. In a sunlit apartment. In a quiet room, I painted myself. Not with revenge, not with bitterness, just with peace. I didn't burn the dress. I just let it go. I didn't uninvite them from my life. I just stopped sending directions. In the end, there were no confrontations, no apologies, just silence. And for the first time, it belonged to me.